all profit is value extraction. And that means that all profit is theft from you.
Corporate America is on welfare, and we got to get them off welfare.
Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
Hi, welcome to Cars and Comrades, your socialist car podcast. My name is Bryant, and we've got Brandon and Connor here today. How's it going, guys?
Hey.
And Zach couldn't make it. He's still coming back from vacation, so he's on his way. Probably won't be able to get on this one, but maybe the next one, hopefully. I don't know. It seems to be how things are going during the summer these days. You know, I was out for the last one, and the last one when we recorded, at least.
It's fucked up. Not recording your podcast is counter-revolutionary.
I know, yeah.
True.
I just... I've been organizing different kinds of parties, you know, not the revolutionary kind. But I don't know. You guys did probably better job than I would have done. I think that episode
we did
went
very
smoother.
well without you. You shouldn't read into that at all.
Oops, I dropped something. Yeah.
No, we missed you, Bryant.
Oh, thank you. But,
I just realized that you were the anchor.
Wait, me?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, either you're keeping us grounded or you're holding us back.
Wow. Thanks, guys.
I was thinking about that in terms of like a news anchor too. So it's like, I don't know. It works on so many levels. I'm not going to explain to you guys how funny I am. I'm just very funny.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now that we've derailed the intro, we're off to a good start.
Yeah. I literally, 30 seconds ago, I was saying, let's keep this tight. And I derailed us immediately. Good job, man.
We did just talk for like an hour and a half before we actually started recording just about bullshit. So
trying to get it out of our system and we failed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
well, let's hit it. What has everyone worked on this week? Go, everyone, all at once.
All at once.
I was going to give a little table of contents here just to begin with. We'll definitely talk about our project cars, but we also got coming up after that some listener mail, good and bad. We're calling it snake oil, but just like weird gadgets and potions that are supposed to improve your fuel economy, but none of them really do. So a little, I don't know, consumer advice there. And then some news stories.
Snake oil is a perfectly valid description of all of these things.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll get into that. But all right, so what have you been working on? Brandon, I know you've got plenty of stuff going on with your van.
Yeah.
Mostly good news, right?
Almost entirely, yeah. Am I leading us in with this?
Sure. Yeah, if you want.
So I just made, as I've discussed before, I have a van that I'm building in the pro street style. So it's at a buddy's farm several hundred miles away, so I don't get to work on it very often. So I made a pilgrimage out to him, and we have the 4-link kit installed. And that means that the van has now sat on 4 wheels on all of its suspension for the first time since I've owned it.
Woo!
We have to do some tweaking. I am going to cut out part of the frame and redo it because, as complicated as that might sound, the way that it's torn down right now, I'm probably describing 3 to 4 hours of work. But the 4-link right now is, we didn't have the proper lengths to measure when we were working on the frame. So right now, if I launched super hard, the top links would hit the frame and bend. And we don't have full adjustability because of that. But again, that's going to take probably $50 worth of steel tube and, 3 or 4 hours worth of work to actually like get welded in. I'm going to move the mounts for the coilovers on the frame and do new mounts for the rear. That, again, I expect all of that to be in the vein of, 2 or 3 hours worth of work. And then it's a full-blown roller. Then we start putting the drivetrain together. And it's I've owned this project for 4.5 fucking years, and we only started putting serious work into it this year. And to have it for that long and to finally see it sitting on the ground on all wheels was probably the happiest I have been this year. It was fucking amazing. Some guys in my van club printed a run of stickers of the finished product, and it's the van in roughly the paint scheme I want to do, with the hammer and sickle on the side, being driven by Karl Marx. If you follow us on social media, I don't know if we've posted it yet, but I'm going to. I meant to already.
Yep, we will.
Yeah, it's so fucking sick. I'm so excited about this. That was last weekend, and I started tearing into a transmission that I'm going to be putting in my Cutlass this weekend too. So, normal shit, like constantly me tearing things apart and whatever. But I do think that my transmission in the car is toast. I can't do burnouts anymore. The RPMs go up, but the tires don't move.
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, it's not ideal. If I'm just driving, I can stomp the gas and spin the tires like hooking up. But if I just put the brake in and try to spin the tires, nothing. So I think I've fried that shitty little transmission that's in there. And yeah, I guess that's me. I'm, always just neck deep in projects. So I think I've worked on some other stuff since we last recorded, but I don't even remember. No, because none of it matters. My fucking van has 4-link now. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to have to put in a sway bar, because I did realize that the way 4-link kits are made, there was nothing to prevent body roll. So I feel like right now I could probably just watch I could take a hard turn and watch the tires just coming out of the wheel wells. But all things in time. We're going to do a sway bar kit probably, and whatever.
Yeah, I mean, my MR2 doesn't have a rear sway bar, but like it's also a lot lower than a van, so less prone to body roll.
This is low, but
Yeah.
because of the way a 4-link kit is, there's nothing holding it centered up. So you have to do something. Like any sort of like regular suspension it might not have a rear sway bar, but it has other things that will stiff. Like even leaf springs prevent body roll. Like maybe not as much as anything else. What I have right now are 4 parallel bars with Heim joints, so it's just going to sway. It is the system purely designed to go straight forward.
Right. And does that have some kind of like a panhard bar or something?
Nope.
Okay. So is it like a triangulated, or is it parallel 4-link?
Well, the triangulation, that has to do with... God, I'm not sure how to explain the geometry. It won't prevent body roll, but it provides adjustability for how much the rear can roll and change like the pinion angle or the way that it like... Because the way 4-link works is instead of kind of pulling the front of the vehicle up, it causes it to squat because it uses geometry to like force the center of gravity down on a hard launch.
Okay.
You can easily still pick up the front end with enough power, because you're just never really going to avoid that. But it's meant to prevent that more so than other styles of suspension. So it is a triangulated 4-link kit, but the triangulation is on an axis that won't prevent body roll. It's
right.
Yeah.
It's just to prevent the axle from moving side to side, basically.
That is body roll, isn't it?
I mean, like from like to keep like the wheel from poking out the side of the bodywork on one side, basically, from it shifting over to the side. That's what the triangulation is for, right?
No, triangulation is just to adjust like how hard you launch.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I'm using the wrong terminology.
Just talking and doing an audio format, it would be it would be doing geometry without being able to see what you're doing geometry on. But yeah, I've got some books on like chassis engineering and stuff, so like
okay.
I've got to read into it more, because really, like, the 4-link kit was not installed in a normal way because a normal car frame sits so much lower. the van is going to be sitting lower than it ever would have stock, but the frame is still just higher than it would be on a car. So we don't have it's not quite the way that it would be, but we found a way to do it so that it still is the 4-link kit is close to what it should be. I don't know, man. I'm excited about it, but in terms of actually explaining the geometry of it and how we did it without showing pictures or diagrams, I don't know if I can do that. But
Yeah, no.
I'm stoked. It's awesome, and it's a roller now. We can push it into the garage the next time I'm out there and finish weld. Everything right now is tacked very well together, but it's not finish welded because we want it to be able to cut it apart if we get it on like flat concrete and realize that things aren't straight, something's out of adjustment. So now we can get it on level ground and finalize all of the dimensions, all the geometry, finish weld everything. So another probably full day's worth of work, and the frame and rear suspension will be fully finalized and ready to race as soon as the whole drivetrain goes in.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it's not exactly almost there, but I do feel like an enormous hurdle has been overcome because like now we can actually move it. I don't know if I showed you guys pictures, but there's been times when I was standing in 1.5 inches of water welding on it because it's just sitting in my friend's backyard under a tarp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I did.
Cool.
Big progress there,
dude. Yeah. I'm incredibly pumped.
Well, I think I told you guys a while ago that my MR2 had a bit of a weird clunk when I would accelerate.
Yeah, you did.
Coming from the rear. And I think I figured that out. I think it was just worn loose bushings in the rear end. I'm pretty sure it's not a motor mount. So what I did, I don't know, I think last week, I jacked it up on all 4 corners and just went underneath it and looked at all the bushings. And a bunch of them are kind of dry rotted and cracked and old and stuff. And I don't know if this helped at all, but I just sprayed a bunch of like penetrating oil and like lithium grease and shit in there to try and get them to like, maybe the rubber will swell up a little bit. Maybe it'll be more lubricated and not squeaky and stuff. And then in the rear on the trailing arms, it has a thing. It has like nuts and bolts on either side where it connects to the bottom of the hub or the knuckle or whatever. And you can tighten those up on either side to sort of squish the rubber bushing from either side. And I did that to the best of my ability because those, I mean, it's all kind of rusty and old. Basically, I just put a bunch of like oil and heat on the nuts. And then I got whatever wrench that I could find that fit on there because the socket won't go on there. And I used a car jack, like a screw jack, as my, sort of mechanical advantage to move that, like, I don't know, maybe a quarter turn, half a turn or something to tighten that up a little bit. And it seemed to help. So I might do that a little bit more if I can on the other side too. But I don't know. And it felt previously like it was out of alignment. And I think maybe it was just things flexing and moving when I was, under acceleration or braking or whatever. So I think it's a pretty good car. Like it's showing its age in some ways, but like it just keeps running. So I'm going to keep driving it, until I can't.
What year is it again?
It's an 86.
Okay.
So I think it's the first or second year that they brought it to the US. So it's, the 87 and onwards had like bigger brakes and a little bit more power and a couple other things that they changed. Like I think with the suspension, like mine had I think the 85s had a sway bar, but mine didn't, but it had all the mounting locations for a sway bar if I wanted to put one on. But
weird. Well, that would be a good modification if you can.
No, because it'll make it oversteer more.
So it'll make it more fun.
I had it on there for a while, and I oversteered into a curb and bent some stuff, so I took it off.
Wait, so how was it causing oversteer? It was just too stiff in the rear?
Yeah, well, it probably wasn't the sway bar's fault, but like that's what everyone was saying was like it'll tend towards oversteer if you have that rear sway bar.
Huh.
And I mean, the big factor was I had old tires and I was driving it too fast. So it was really my fault. But
I'm sorry, why? I
Yeah.
don't understand that term.
too fast.
Too fast. What do you? I
Yes,
don't.
for the conditions and the tires that I had, definitely. Like I think they were just the tires that came with it that were probably old and out of date and shitty in general. So
There's never too much speed, only not enough traction.
yes.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've noticed that with my Camaro because for the longest time I was too cheap to get new tires. And now that I have new tires, one, the car runs like shit. But I think I would have a lot harder of a time spinning those tires than the last dry rotted shit I had. The last tires I was on, like, I didn't think they were as dangerous as they are, but like now with new tires, I'm like, yeah, that was fucking stupid dangerous. I really shouldn't have been driving on that. So if you were on old tires, I would blame those before the sway bar, probably.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I could put the sway bar back on, but at this point, like it drives fine. I'm like it understeers a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not like I'm not taking it to any autocrosses right now. So whatever.
Speaking of old tires, I finally replaced my spare. I now have a radial tire on it. My spare was a bias ply tire.
So it was what, like 30, 40 years old or something?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, old tires are not good. Like, just remember that's how Paul Walker died. So
I thought he died from dating an underage girl.
wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
Never forget. Oh, that was a joke. Dating an underage girl didn't kill him. It just apparently kept him alive for a period.
I didn't know about that. I didn't know too much about his personal life.
I don't know the details of it, but
It's one of those weird stories where you're like, it's not. It's a rich guy doing rich guy things, and rich guy things apparently for some reason involves young women and men apparently for whatever reason.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
But what? I mean, they didn't put that.
I feel like I really derailed this conversation.
Speaking of, the new Fast and Furious, I think is out now. I have not seen it. I'll suck it up at some point and see it when it comes not in theaters. Someone on this podcast has to see it, though. Maybe we'll draw straws.
I think we should all force ourselves to watch it and do an episode about it.
I've only ever seen the first movie, so I would be a little bit lost. Like, I'm sure the plot is not all that important to those movies, but
I mean, there's a whole through story, and
but the through story is very simple, right? Family.
It's family, yeah, pretty much. Anything
Okay.
having I don't have friends. I got family, Mr.
There was
villain.
I'll see if I can find it, but there was a YouTube video where someone was saying that the Fast and the Furious crew were basically like pirates who like pirates in the, back in the 1700s or whatever would occasionally be contracted by whatever government to go harass whatever enemy country.
Yeah.
And they're like a democratic collective of anarchists.
Privateering is called.
Whoa, hold on. You're not about to start besmirching anarchists by comparing us to these terrible movies. That I will not stand for that.
I mean, I was saying more the pirates were the anarchists and democratically running their boats and everything. And that's it's a bit of a stretch.
Like
and yeah, I don't know. Watch the video if you really want.
That's a pretty sweeping statement. I do know that there were some pirate crews that were like that, but I don't think that was necessarily the norm, at least not by a certain point. But I really don't know, so I would have to look into that more.
But the Fast and Furious crew were like pirates in a lot of those ways. It's
right.
But essentially, those are superhero movies now. They're Marvel movies. They're probably Marvel's gonna buy them. Actually, I'm proposing. I would love to see that happen. That would just be the best, like, late stage capitalist story. Just like, oh, Marvel now owns Fast and Furious. It's happened. It's
Yeah,
coming.
I can't wait to find out how his 69 Charger defeats Thanos.
Oh man,
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Turns out that Thanos' one weakness is nitrous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Where were we?
So-
Where were we?
Oh no, I just had a couple more things real quick, and then we'll move on. But like, I guess the other thing I've been working on is my moped. I think I might have mentioned this, but like the rear wheel had a bent rim.
Yep.
And I had a donor bike that I took a bunch of parts from a while ago, but it was the one built under license in India, and so they changed a few things. And one of those things was the wheel spline pattern for the rear wheel. So I couldn't just switch the wheel over from one to the other. And what I ended up having to do was take it apart and use the hub from the Italian-made one and the rim from the Indian-made wheel, and then whatever spokes were in good shape, and built up a wheel.
Wow, you did the
so
whole
I've
bit,
got
huh?
that put together. What's that?
I said, wow, you did the whole thing then, huh?
Yeah, I haven't balanced it yet. I haven't trued it up, but I've got it put together kind of loosely.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I'm hoping to get that done by the end of July, because there's, I think on the 29th, there's like a big scooter meetup that, what's his name? Scott, previous guest Scott, was going to go to. And I'm like, hey, would my janky old moped be welcome? And he's like, yeah, I mean, you might not make it into the part where we go up into the mountains, but you can hang out with us in town and run around. And I'm like, cool. I'm going to try and get this thing running and on the road. So that's
Sweet.
putting some fire underneath me to get that done. But the other thing, yesterday was July 4th. We're recording this on the 5th. And I was hanging out with James and Rafi, both previous guests, and another friend, Matt, who's not a car guy. And we were talking about all kinds of stuff. I'll have to post some pictures in the social media or something. But Rafi got an old cop car, an old Crown Vic, like a 97, I think. That's pretty cool. Big old land barge. And, when I saw it, he had like, I think 4 or 5 tires and wheels like in the trunk and the back seat. So like it's a pretty good, parts hauler. And big ones, like, I don't know, 20-inch wheels or something, for another project, or for a friend's project. I forget which. And then James, it was sort of a potluck. James brought a apple pie with a pastry hammer and sickle on the top of it. So I was very, we shared it evenly. But yeah, that was pretty fun. And one of the things that we were talking about is the Chevy Sonic, which is a decent little economy car. I think it's the second generation of the Aveo, which was like designed by Daewoo. So like it's nothing special or whatever, but they had a turbo version. It only made like 130 something horsepower, but it had a turbo. And I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole last night looking into those, because I guess Rafi was saying that you can switch the bigger like 2-liter turbo into those and make a faster version of them. But you can also buy like a replacement upgraded turbo for the stock 1.4 liter, which gets you almost like around 200 horsepower to the wheels or so. And I was looking into that and like looking at prices of Chevy Sonic turbos near me and stuff. I'm like, oh, for this much and this much, I could get a pretty cool turbo little hatchback.
I
And
keep
then I'm like,
doing that
wait.
myself. Same shit where you're just like, oh, here's this little piece of shit I could buy really cheap, and then here's all the money I could spend to make it
Exactly.
not. And then you're
Yeah.
like, but it's still a little piece of shit, which is fine. It's good for gas and stuff. I need a fuel efficient little zippy car that's fun to drive and isn't actually fast. Like,
There's
Yeah.
not one person in this podcast that is capable of buying something and not fucking with it. Just
Yes.
forget that. Like, I'm just going to buy this reasonable daily driver that gets good fuel economy, and I'm just going to leave it stock. Except, maybe I'll put a turbo on it, or like maybe I'll put a cam in it. Actually, like, I'm getting 8 miles to a gallon, but my car sounds so good at idle. Like, we're
Literally,
dumb people. We're bad at money.
Yeah.
my Nissan I bought, like, I was like, no, I'm gonna get a separate drift car. I'm gonna keep this one nice. This is gonna be my daily car. And not kidding, 2 months later, it was out on the drift track as I'm like driving off the fucking track. Like, ooh, well, I'll learn. I won't. If I crash into anything, I'll buy another car. Whatever. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I can't not fuck with it.
The only time I'm not fucking with something is when I'm too busy.
Yeah. And one of the things I've been too busy to work on lately is my Subaru. It's got a few problems. I think I said before the AC doesn't work. And also it was doing this thing where it would leak fuel when it's cold. And now it's leaking fuel when it's warm.
Nice.
And so like I got about like 17 miles per gallon highway last time I drove it, which is not typical. So I think I tracked it down. It's a pretty common problem with these cars that there's a fuel line that runs underneath the intake manifold. That's a rubber line with hose clamps on either end, and that can leak because it heat cycles and the rubber gets old and cracks and shit.
Yep.
So it's inside the manifold, or
yeah, it's in between the block and the manifold.
Okay.
So some people were saying there's a way you can get like a long screwdriver and get in there, but it looks kind of tricky. I might end up just having to take the manifold off and replace all those lines.
I would just go right there.
So I mean, it's going to be a pain in the ass.
Just get all fresh new gaskets. Once you take off that top end, it's good.
Yeah,
like that's kind of a good. That's what I would do.
But it's like, do I also want to like upgrade the injectors at the same time? Do I just want to replace the motor with a JDM one preemptively? And I don't know. I'm not sure what I want to do with that car. So it's just going to sit for a while.
I love the snowballing of like, okay, well this just needs a new fuel line. So logically, by extension, I should do head gaskets. I should do new studs. I should just upgrade the intake. Really, it's going to be off. I might as well find something else better. Like before you know it, that $8 fix is like $700 deep, and your car doesn't run for 2 years.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, and I know it's coming, and I can't avoid it. So
just give in.
But yeah, sorry, that was kind of a lot, but that's all I've been up to lately.
No, I love the afternoons where you're like, I recently found out that there's a company that makes aftermarket Oldsmobile blocks. So
okay.
I could build the motor that I'm putting into my car. Hypothetically, I could build a big inch one. I think it was like, give or take, it was about a 550 cubic inch version that I could build with their block. And it can actually handle like boost and all this other stuff. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do this because the bare block alone is $4,000, but I don't have anything to do for the next hour. So I'm going to cruise the internet and hypothetically spend $15,000 building this motor I never am going to have.
Right. Yeah. The thing that I was looking at with the Chevy Sonic last night, it's like for all those different mods that you could put in to get around 200 horsepower, you could just buy a, Fiesta ST, like a Ford Fiesta ST. So like, unless you really want to have a Sonic, a Chevy that's actually a Daewoo, you might as well just go with the Ford at that point. There's a much better aftermarket for one of those. But I don't know.
A Fiesta is a party, man.
Yeah. That's what I hear. I think I've heard they're good cars for like a hot hatch.
No, I just literally mean that Fiesta means party. I know nothing about those cars.
But yeah, sorry for going on for a while there. But Connor, what have you been working on?
Well, yeah, your time there was mostly us derailing it at several critical points. So that wasn't just you rambling, at least.
Yeah,
it was 3 of us rambling.
Yes, it's a team effort here.
Well, we're gonna do it again, so we got one more. I haven't been working on too much besides mostly just finding new problems. Essentially, I'm in the problem finding stage. Essentially,
Yeah.
In my experience, that stage never ends.
yeah, I know. No, so the Camaro I'm daily driving I hate daily driving it. I get it's so funny. I get people break their necks looking at this thing, and I'm getting thumbs up every fucking time I drive it. And also, I hate the car with a passion. And so, like, there's just this weird like disconnect in my head where everyone's like, "Oh fuck, that's the coolest car," and I'm just like, "I own it. It really sucks. Don't get one. Just don't do it. They're terrible." Um, so it's kind of a weird disconnect, but so I'm daily driving it. It doesn't have AC right now, so it's like kind of shitty. I have one of those AC recharge things in the car that I just haven't gotten around to using because it takes a whole 20 minutes and I just haven't wanted to do that.
Who's got that kind of time?
I know. I
We
certainly
got
do.
podcasts to record.
And aren't you supposed to like purge the old system with vacuum and shit like that, or
I don't know. There's instructions on there, and it's like, okay, run the thing at full blast with all the doors open, then find the low pressure port, then put it on, then measure it, and then if it's this, then fuck with it. If it's fine, you have something else wrong. I just haven't wanted to fuck with it.
I think if you have like absolutely no AC at all, you might want to get the professional. You don't have to take it to a place, but like get the loaner tool from the parts store. That's like the vacuum pump and the gauges and all that shit.
Uh-huh.
And then put the actual like special lubricant in there. Like I watched a video about this because I need to do the same thing on my car. But like, so that's what I need to do on my car because I know there's an actual hole in the AC line. So there's like nothing in that system. But if it's just like a little bit low,
I think it's probably well. So here's the thing: whatever it cost, it was like $30-$40, and I've always wondered if these things work. I guess I'm gonna find out. I think it's kind of just low because I know at some point, like I had it was working fine. I think it's just the car sat for fucking however many years, and I don't know what that does, but um, I don't know. I think it's got the gauge on it and everything. I'm gonna give it a try. If it works, I'll be happy that for $30 I got it working. A part of me is just avoiding it because I have a feeling it's not going to work, and then whatever. I don't think it's going to do any harm, but there's a good chance that it won't work.
So in my experience, you never ever have to worry about charging your AC system if you just buy a vehicle that never came with air conditioning to begin with.
Oh, I bet
that would work.
Yeah, I've heard that. I have heard that
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, I've never had to recharge an air conditioning system because literally nothing I own has an air conditioning.
I'm so like I've gotten so like I love it. I'm all for it. That is the one. That's like the creature comfort that I need. I've been so going to the track and seeing people with their drift cars like dying, hanging out of their cars. I'm like, no, I'm not interested in that. When I'm in grid, I'm sitting there with my AC pumping, and I'm like, yo, I'm fucking comfy, ready to go out. And I'm watching other people who are like struggling, and I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm never going back. Never going back. I want AC all the time. If my race car can have AC, my fucking daily can have AC. Which usually they're the same car, so But so yeah, I don't know. We'll be trying that. I bought the thing. I just haven't used it. I'll get around to it at some point. Then the other thing was the bent gas tank filler neck, which I've definitely mentioned before. I don't know if I mentioned how I tried to unbend it, which super didn't work. But I tried using a tailpipe expander. So the like loaner tool you can get from the parts store. And the tailpipe expander is just like you stick it in and you'll turn the whatever bit and it just kind of pushes into a slanted piece, so it just forces this thing to widen evenly, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh well, if it expands evenly, it'll bend my ovaled filler neck. It'll hopefully make it round again. So I tried to do that, and that's when I found out that it kind of doesn't necessarily expand evenly if it's not all the way in. So like if you stick it all the way in your tailpipe, it'll work. But like because it can only go in so far into a gas tank filler neck, because obviously it's not designed for that. It only goes in about, you know, an inch and a half deep or something. So that it starts to like put like the back starts to expand really fast, and then the front just stops expanding. So it just like it was just like I'm putting it in there, and I was trying to get it to, and just nothing was. It just wasn't doing it. So it's like because the whole thing doesn't fit right, it didn't work. And I was like, well, I tried a C clamp, which also didn't work because there's just not enough room inside there. Like you can get the C clamp on, but like then you can't turn it. And if you can turn it, you can't get the C clamp on. It's like it's that perfect kind of setup where you just can't quite fit anything right in there. So it was a bitch. So I just got a new filler neck for, you know, it wasn't too bad. It was like $75 or something. So I was like, well, whatever, I'll have that done. Easy enough. And then I just got the box out of the package room at my building, and the box is just torn to shit. Like I actually cannot believe that the filler neck found its way to the building. Because the top of the box is completely open, and the side of the box is like is no longer connected, so like it can just fly open at any moment. So luckily it seems to have made it there. I just hope there were no accessories or anything in the box. I hope there aren't any seals or anything, because if so, those are not with it. So as of now, it's just this piece of metal that is a very simple design. It is kind of, I was a little bit like, wow, yeah, this is very simple.
Yeah, it's not quite like it's a little bit like Zach's weird Audi bolt that we were talking about very early in the podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, the box showed up. It's totally fucked. But whatever. The thing's here. The part is what I need, not the box. So I don't know how it got so fucked up, but whatever. It's here. I can install that, and you know, I can make a right turn without gas flying all over outside the car. Because that was, you know, I knew if
it was that bad.
Yeah. So I'm not kidding you. I would know if I took a turn too fast, I would start to smell gas, and then I was like, oh, took it too fast.
My old van that we discussed in the shitbox episode definitely had a serious case of that going on.
Yeah. Well, it took me forever to figure out what the hell was going, because I just didn't understand what was happening. So it took a little investigation. Then I finally figured out, okay, it's just there's literally gas flying out, which I wonder what it looks like. I just want to know from the outside perspective how stupid this must look. But whatever. So yeah, I got that. And then in theory, the Nissan should have some of the parts that were at the machine shops coming back, either at the end of last week or hopefully early this week. So I'm going to call on that, but hopefully that stuff is done. Fingers crossed.
And they're putting the whole motor together for you, or what?
Yep.
Cool.
Doing all of it. So the block and the heads were at two different shops.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of why. So in theory, both should be back at the shop where they're doing it. But the bottom end will be all put together and in the block and all that. So it's all balanced, and it'll be balanced with the clutch, which I didn't even know you could balance it with a clutch. But yeah, and you know they put the new flywheel, the new clutch on, and they'll have it all balanced. So
interesting.
Should be smooth. And then I can't remember, was there something else I was supposed to bitch about? I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah.
You're doing our news section, so you got plenty left to bitch about.
Oh, wait, hold on. I know what it is. So the Camaro is running shitty. For a long time, I've been like, God, I remember this car being so much faster, but maybe I was just a kid and I just didn't know any better. But I'm pretty sure it is much slower than it used to be. It feels slow as shit to me, and I started to notice that the power delivery is like stuttering a little bit. So the check engine light went back on this week, and then 2 days later it was off again. So I don't know if it was actually related, but like for a while I've noticed like when I'm accelerating kind of just right, like it'll stutter a little bit, and I was like, oh, I hit a bump in the road, or it's in my head. I wasn't sure, it's one of those kind of like subtle things. But then once I kind of got a feel for it, I started testing it out in a way that would like reproduce the problem, and then I got it to be pretty consistent. It stutters at like specific parts of the rev range and specific engine loads, it seems.
Huh.
So like at a certain like 75% kind of engine load, I'll stutter at 2400 RPM, 3100, and then I think like 41 or 4200. And it'll just like, you'll feel it kind of, the power will like, it's almost like it's got like very little power, and then all of a sudden it'll have like a quick jolt for 50 RPM and then drop back off. So it's very like, I don't know, something's off about it. I don't know what. Could be timing's off a little bit or something. I have no idea.
My
though.
first thought would be maybe some sort of intake leak.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
Because I had a not entirely dissimilar problem, but it doesn't completely jive with what you were saying. And I literally just needed to do new base gaskets for my carburetor. And because it was a problem that I think had existed and just gotten worse since I've owned the van, but I noticed a significant gain in power because suddenly my fuel mixture was correct.
That's the thing. I don't know if I don't think the fuel mixture is correct. But like it's theoretically it was rebuilt, right? So the motor was rebuilt. It should be all good. If those, I don't know, it should have all new gaskets. So like in theory it should be good. But yeah, there's something I'm like, it's low on power. It doesn't have a misfire though, and it doesn't like.
That was why I didn't immediately think intake leak, because mine would like backfire or spit under very certain circumstances.
Yeah, I can get it to backfire once in a while. Like I'll put the clutch in and I'll just hear that pop, but like it doesn't feel like
that sounds like some sort of like it's sucking air.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to say cam position sensor. If it's happening at certain RPMs, maybe that could be.
I don't even know if it's got a cam position sensor in that thing.
What year is Camaro?
It's a 97, so it was the LT1.
Yeah, 97 was. Wait, that's an LT1. So that's not the. Is that like more of the small block version, or is that the LS?
No, so it was the precursor to the LS. So the LT was just the small block.
So it might have
that's what I thought. So it doesn't have a crank positioning sensor. It just has a distributor, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just the distributor. So that's, I don't know. It could be any number of things.
The electronics on that are still pretty rudimentary.
Yeah.
But it's got to have some kind of sensor in the distributor then to tell the fuel injection when to fire, right?
It does have some kind of. It's got a computer. I mean, it is OBD2. So like,
is it throttle body injection?
No, it's it's regular fuel injection.
Huh. Okay.
If it's anything like the little bit that I do know about that era of motors, yeah, there's just a sensor in the exhaust that tells it if it's rich or lean, and it adjusts.
Yeah. And I literally don't know if those work. I've got my doubts on whether or not those O2 sensors are like. How well?
Yeah. Okay, so it could just be batch fire injectors then that wouldn't need any sort of.
It could be a million things. It could very well be an intake leak somewhere. That's not. It doesn't sound wrong. We'll say so.
Well,
I gotta have that looked at.
Theoretically, without it being under load, this might not work. But you can just have somebody get in the car, put it in neutral, rev it up to like 2,500 RPMs. And spray carb cleaner around the intake or around anywhere where it could be pulling air. And if you get if it surges,
Yep. No, I've done that test. I haven't tried that yet. So, that's not a bad idea. That's easy enough to do.
You probably have carb cleaner laying around. If not, it's $4 or $5, and it'll
Yeah.
take like so little time to do that. Now, that being said, I don't love that method because that didn't find the leak in mine, because without it being under load, it wasn't really pulling a lot of air. But, it's worth a try.
Yeah, no, that's definitely something to, because there's a lot of potential leak paths. I mean, there's cracking vacuum hoses, like shit's old. It could be any number of things. So yeah, some spraying, some carb cleaner or whatever around would probably be a good way to tell, or at least a starter test. It's the simple, that's the simple test to do. So yeah, may try that. But aside from those, like I said, I'm just in the problem finding phase on that car, which is always. So that's where I'm at lately.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to get the thing well enough that I can put it into a consignment place and sell it and make it someone else's problem. Someone who's excited to fix things, because I'm not excited to fix things.
Yeah.
Not anymore. I fixed enough on that car.
I get excited about fixing stuff, but usually on vehicles I like to begin with.
Yeah. I used to like this car, and then now it's just like, ugh, it's not a good driving car. It's like, it's not that fun. I don't know. Maybe I'm lame.
Yeah. I'm kind of feeling the same way about my Subaru. I kind of, like, if I could get decent money for it right now, I might just trade it for, like, I don't know, some other hot hatch, maybe like a Mazda Speed 3. I was talking about doing that, but
yeah,
we'll see.
All right, you guys want to move into some content? I need to be out of here in about half an hour. And we've done projects for 45 minutes now.
Well, let me do the listener mail real quick, and then
dude, let's hear it.
Here's the mail, it never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
The first one that I've got is when we posted the update on Lordstown Motors, the one that I wasn't on. I posted that one to Reddit, and I know. Remember, Brandon, you were talking about the weirdos on Reddit who are like pumping up the stock of Lordstown, kind of like the whole, I don't know, GameStop thing, whatever. They think they're going to make money on this.
These people genuinely believe in the company, but to the extent where anything that is good is because the company's good, and anything that is bad is because people are just against them and lying and trying to like destroy them.
Because the company's good. Yeah.
Yes. And in theory, it could be. I'm not willing to wholly discredit them. Like, they've made some positive moves, but also plenty of bad things have happened since they made positive moves. So who the fuck knows?
So anyway, someone left a comment on that post on Reddit. And honestly, it kind of baffled me at first. I wasn't quite sure what this person was saying. But then I looked at their comment history, and they're all over that Lordstown subreddit. So,
well, I'll say, if you're about to read a post from Reddit, can you like leave out all of the slurs?
Yes. I don't think there are any slurs on here, but I'll be careful to look for that. So this person, username King Jasco 96, says maybe you could get the stock hub. I'm not sure what that is, on one of the podcasts when it comes to Lordstown. A lot of the negative news, in scare quotes, are biased, and it's hard for people who haven't done any research to realize that. So, King Jasco 96, if you're listening now, clarify what you mean by the stock hub. I have no idea what that means. I don't know. Tell us why we're wrong in a coherent way, I guess.
I don't have much hope for that.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so that's a reasonable example of why I say that, like, they think anything good is truth and anything bad is lies, because like they're saying, don't trust the news, like do your actual research. And it's like, well, there was a guy who did actual research, and he might have had ulterior motives, but like, but when they got outed for doing a bunch of like dumb shit, some of that I am slowly becoming of the opinion that maybe it was slightly misleading, but it was by and large accurate, and a lot of the stuff he predicted is coming to fruition. And so like why did but those people discredit him. It's the Hindenburg research guy. Like they discredit anything that he has said or done completely. And any background research I've done on him ultimately led me to finding that the only people who universally condemn his research are the supporters of the companies that he's fucked over. And when I say fucked over, I don't mean like he did something malicious. He just outed a lot of places for being scams.
It sounds to me the same way people, and I'm sure a lot of listeners get this kind of vibe a lot. You talk about anything socialist, and immediately you get the same talking points from people, and they're like, "Oh, you don't know anything about capitalism. You just need to know the basics of capitalism." And you're like, that's the precursor to being a socialist. But like you can explain that to them, and they're just like, "No, you just didn't do enough research on capitalism." And it's like, no. It's literally doing the research on capitalism is what leads you here.
Yeah.
But like they'll never hear it. There is nothing you could say that would make them hear that.
Yeah. I mean, Marx wrote a whole couple books about capitalism, so
yeah.
Real he was page turners, those books.
I suppose you learn what a yard of linen is, right?
I think there's a manga version of Capital. If you want something a little bit more exciting.
I saw something like that, but I can't remember, so I'm not going to try and recite it. But
yeah,
I would love to see Lordstown Motors do something positive. I'm not universally condemning them, but I'm not seeing anything to indicate to me that they're a company with genuine promise.
Yeah.
They have made prototypes at this point that run and did I talk to you guys about the fact that one of my coworkers actually did go to Lordstown Week, their big like open house event?
Oh,
yeah, you talked about that.
Yeah, he's driven in their trucks now. He says that they actually handle great and are awesome, but like, actually, as car guys, one thing that's really funny is I'm not going to get into the specifics of it because it doesn't really matter that much. But one thing I found really entertaining for a couple of days about the Reddit sub for Lordstown was these guys who are really into investing and know little about cars, like regurgitating facts about how the Lordstown design is doing this, and this is all the reasons that this is good, or this is all the reasons that this is bad. And I'm reading it and I'm like regardless of whether this is good or bad, you clearly have no idea what you're talking about. So why are you even attributing any sort of positive or negative value to this? Like, you're repeating something that you heard from somebody else who didn't know anything about cars. Like, fuck off.
While we're talking about Lordstown, we also have to mention, apparently on it was either Thursday or Friday, they apparently it was kind of came out that there's a DOJ investigation into some practices by Lordstown Motors under the old CEO Steve Burns. So I don't think they're like looking into. Yeah, it's apparently.
I haven't read into that yet. I'm not fulfilling my duties as the Lordstown critic, but I have heard about that, and I just haven't gotten to look into it yet.
Yeah, there's something about it. We know the SEC is looking into them for this and that, and apparently it came out that the DOJ.
I don't think the SEC has any actual investigations. They've just had some criticisms of like the way that they've done things.
Yeah, it was mostly bureaucratic kind of like complaints, right? Of just like how they're approaching stuff.
Well, I mean, the SEC, I believe, are the ones who outed them for having no actual concrete pre-orders. But like that wasn't an investigation. That was just them saying like, you filed this paperwork and it's clearly wrong. Like, or it clearly shows that you did this or you did that. But I don't think that there's any investigation by the SEC right now.
Gotcha.
So as far as I know, this is actually the like first formal investigation that has been launched against them. So I mean, I don't know. We'll probably learn a lot from them, and then Reddit will be like, actually, the government's biased or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
It turns out that consumers are biased because they're not buying the thing that we like. Like it's
They're biased against poor quality products, huh? How about that?
Maybe it'll be a great quality product, but I'm personally biased against scams. So yeah, that's fair. Well, actually, no, that's unfair. I'm very biased in favor of scams, just not this kind. Like, if I can make an extra quick couple of bucks, I'm about it. But
all right, sorry, Bryant, we derailed it again, but
no, it's cool. So we got this email a while ago from someone named Willow. And they say, "Hey, Cars and Comrades, I recently found your podcast through your Instagram. By the way, great memes. That's mostly Connor. Good job, Connor.
Oh, thank
And,
you.
and thought of a topic that may be interesting to cover or just relatable for me and other female identifying individuals. Anyway, the topic is does the patriarchy and or related topics, example sexism, misogyny, etc., exist and portray itself in the car spaces? Street community, drifting, off-roading, mechanic shops, etc. And as female identifying person, what's some good advice to combat that, and how not to get upcharged or dummy charged when looking to buy or service a vehicle? I recently encountered this issue yet again when looking at a potential project car, a 98 XJ Jeep Cherokee, and I'm kind of tired of sellers giving extra high prices because they think I don't know about the vehicle model because I'm a woman. Now, of course, there's stubborn sellers who believe their car uh, is worth what they're asking. But in my main experience, it's been somewhat obvious I'm considered dumb by certain actions the seller portrays. Example: acting as the nice guy through their compromised ask is 3,000 over the average value of the car in my location, etc. And likely based on my intelligence simply on my feminine first name or appearance. I do understand cars mechanics are one of the biggest classically masculine areas that have continued to exist. So it's not surprising any space related would be dismissive or intolerant of feminine behavior or other genders, considering the historical context. Though I've noticed some of the other social behavior trends that make the space just unpleasant, that I'd additionally be curious if the podcast or any female or non-binary identifying person the podcast knows has noticed in your area. For example, I've noticed most females I know within the car community often either enter the interest through their male family members, brother, father, grandparent, etc., or romantic significant other. I don't personally mind or see an innate issue with either introduction, though I've definitely observed the social hierarchical status and respect of either entrants to be different in my location. In brief, I'll just say that I've noticed that women who entered the car community through non-familial influence are viewed as less than to any ordinary car guy with car knowledge or not. And at a couple points have actually overheard ordinary car dudes specifically say women in the car community are decoration or just there to date/fuck.
Ooh.
And of course, I've got my personal opinions on that.
Ugh.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that sentiment. It's fucked.
Yep,
Yeah.
I've heard it. It's gross every time. Ugh.
So, the last couple paragraphs here. Hope it's a cool topic. Sorry about the long email, and thanks so much for reading. You guys are super cool, and I appreciate the leftist representation in the car world, because I'm sure we've all seen enough Punisher, Blue Line, American flags, God knows what else. In one way, I'd hope the topic being spoken about helps break down the gender stigma and could be insightful for male listeners. And I might, yeah. So there's a little bit more than that, but yeah, we've been talking to Willow and some other female and non-binary folks in the car community, and yeah, it's like definitely something like this is one of the reasons why we wanted to start the podcast, is to talk about stuff like this.
Yeah, we tried to find just not regular ass fucking white dudes to come on, and podcasters, lean white dude. So yeah, we've kind of talked about this, and if you are female, non-binary, trans, anything like that, any people of color as well, because again, for fucking straight white dudes, we would love to have. We've talked about maybe having an episode where we have guests and hear other people's perspectives, because that behavior definitely exists. I think that was a big part of why we're doing this, so that we would like to see the thing that we love be more egalitarian and approachable for other people.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, yeah. Reading that email, as soon as we kind of all read it, I felt like that resonated immediately. I was like, "Oh, I've seen all of this. My
Yeah.
partner Megan has told me every one of these things. I was like, oh yeah, same shit at the dealerships, at the mechanic shops, every little part of cars, whether it's from the car scene, as in like aftermarket stuff, at the track, at the dealership, this shit is pervasive everywhere. And I mean, patriarchy obviously is. That is the default. It's just so much more pronounced. I think in this kind of hobby, in this kind of world, is just so that email really resonated, and it was like, yeah, we want to get some more voices on this, because I can talk about how I've seen that present in the car scene, but I have not personally felt that kind of like alienation from it, because I have the the pleasure of blending in when I want.
Yeah, I'm
I don't.
visibly white trash. I'm the kind of person that like car dudes immediately feel comfortable like throwing out slurs around me, and I've got to be like, actually, don't ever fucking say something like that around me. Like,
Yep.
but I know how I appear to other people, and it sucks.
Yeah.
I hate that. Like, I have there's a girl I know who, when she came out as trans, she was a big figure in like the van world, and I haven't talked to her in depth, but I know that they were really afraid, her and her partner, because they like she manufactures parts. She's an amazing welder and metal shaper, and just very talented and insanely hard worker. And they were worried about like their business being able to survive, because even with vanning being like a relatively chill like subset of the car world, it's still a lot of like 50, 60, 70-year-old reactionary fucking dudes who don't get it and aren't chill about it. She's doing all right, and I keep meaning to talk to her and see if she would want to come on, and probably now would be a good time. But yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah,
Fuck
it's a
world.
problem, but we're trying to. That's why we want to get more voices here.
Right.
Yes, we are definitely looking to hear some of these stories. And I think we were talking kind of about doing almost like a panel sort of setup, getting multiple people interacting instead of us just interviewing one person on this. I do feel like it would be really cool to actually let some other people kind of steer the conversation a little bit, and take us through that experience. And I'd like to do it more than once, we would, I should say.
Do we want to try and address any sort of advice for how to help somebody like that not get fucked over by mechanics and people selling shit? Because I actually had to deal with this recently. A friend of mine down south was, and I asked around and found a female mechanic for them, so that it would be like easier for them to like get a fair shake at like decent repairs for a decent price. But in general, I don't have solid advice for that.
Yeah, I don't know if I have any good advice. I've heard some people say in the past, just bring any male person with you, even if they're not like, even if they don't know anything about cars, and then just
just them being there. Seriously, it changes. So like the salesperson will go ahead, let them talk to your male identifying friend or family member, whatever. They'll talk at them. You listen. This sucks. This isn't like empowering, but you do the listening, and they'll talk to essentially your clay person over here, who's just there as a body, and you'll get what you need to know. And as long just whatever situation you're going into, go in with as much knowledge as you can. Look
That's
ahead of
the
time.
advice I was gonna give, and I didn't want to give it because that fucking sucks, dude.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It's
like the only way that you can be treated like a person is if you have somebody else that person can respect standing near you. Fuck that.
Yeah. No, it's
I
gross.
get it. You do what you've got to do to exist in a shitty world, but I hate that is that way.
Well, and outside of that, that's not a requirement. Again, going into any situation, this works for anybody, obviously, but go in knowledgeable. So whatever your repair is, Google it. Let's say you don't know the problem and you take it into the shop, and then they say, "Oh, it's this." Okay, Google it. Find out what could it be? Try and learn something, even if you don't, because I don't. There's a whole lot of stuff about cars that I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's way beyond my capability, but I'll use that opportunity to learn whenever I can. I don't know about going into a dealership. I've done it a couple times, and I just hate it anyway, because they're just, they don't even negotiate on price anymore. I feel like they do the whole "I'm going to go talk to the manager" thing. It's like, dude, I asked you for. I mean, we're talking about $100 here, and you're going to go, "Oh, I got to go check with." Come on. So I don't know what necessarily you can do there, but like go in knowledgeable. Just know what you can talk someone down with. Know what it is you're looking for, and they will
Information
still
is your
condescend.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah, they will condescend to you. I can't stop that. But if you go in knowledgeable, you can actually kind of undermine them a little bit, especially if
Go
you.
in knowledgeable, and when they condescend to you, condescend right the fuck back.
Yeah. No, really, because you'll throw them off. And so if you go in with knowledge, whatever you can get your hands on, that's the key. And then you can essentially use that kind of to your advantage. It sucks that it is a problem though.
Yeah, and this is one of those things where it's kind of hard to separate the problems of capitalism from the oppression of patriarchy. Like, it's all interlinking systems of oppression. Like, people are trying to rip you off, and they're also condescending to you because of your gender or your race or whatever. So like, it's a double thing, and it's not. Yeah, you can't really separate the two out. Like I'm trying to do some financial stuff right now, and it seems like everything in like getting a loan and whatever is just everyone's trying to rip you off. At least that's the sense I get, and I'm a straight white guy, so I don't know, whatever. That's just my rant for
Yeah, I guess if I have to give good advice besides bring a guy with you, it's just, if you're going to look at a car, read everything you can, find common problems, ask intelligent questions. Just do hell, go on forums online and ask people like what you should be looking for, what are the common points of failure, and like ask about maintenance. Like, ask enough to let them know that you know what you're talking about.
yeah.
I was just going to say, especially when looking at a car, this goes for everybody. You should always bring someone else with you.
Yeah.
I do that myself. Even if the person I'm bringing isn't as knowledgeable, I bring someone to keep me from like, oh, I'm being too polite with the seller and I'm just talking about that. We're having a grand old time. It's like, bring someone else to like let you know, hey, look at the car though. Like, yeah, I know you're hitting it off, but like, don't do something stupid. Because
Right.
sometimes I know what I'm looking at, that like I want this car. I know what to look for. I saw the ad. I came here because I'm super psyched about it. That's a dangerous situation for me. So I do sometimes bring someone to just temper me a little bit. And
Sometimes
I do that.
you bring two friends. You bring your friends Smith and Wesson, and then the car's free.
But yeah, I'm just saying, if you're looking at a car, you should try and bring somebody because, yeah, having an extra set of eyes is always good.
And if the listeners have any better ideas, or if you have had similar experiences, please email us. We're like we said, a bunch of white cis guys, so we don't always know what we're talking about. But if this resonates with you, please email us, carsandcomrades@gmail.com.
Please hit us up. We really want other perspectives, and
Yeah,
we want other people who have experienced it to say like, this is what I want. So
yeah, we want to put your voice forward, like for real. That's what we're going for. And reach out and email. You can also reach us on any of our social media. I mean, we read the messages there, and I do get from several of our listeners. I get memes, or I get sent news articles, and it's actually really nice and very helpful, because other leftists who are into cars will see shit, because it's hard to connect the dots sometimes. So with other people on it, I mean, we do enjoy hearing from listeners. So definitely hit us up if this is something that like I feel like resonates with people who experience it. Please, we want to hear that.
We just do this for fun, and we don't even try to make money off of it or anything. And we're more than fucking happy to use it as a platform to let other people like express their concerns or do whatever. Yeah, come on the fucking show, man. We're pretty chill.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I think the next thing we had on the agenda was snake oil, right?
Yeah, I'm sadly probably gonna have to duck out early here in a minute, but yeah, let's roll into it.
All right, so I found we were talking about this a little bit, like sort of the myth of the I don't know. There's this myth that got started a long time ago, probably over 100 years ago, that some inventor came up with a carburetor that you could put on your car that would get 200 miles per gallon, or it would like run on water, or any number of things. And the conspiracy theory is that the secret agents of General Motors came and stole the carburetor in the middle of the night, and or killed the inventor, or bought his patents and put him out of business or something. I don't know. Like I'll link.
Which,
I'll put a couple
unfortunately,
links
I gotta
in there.
say, they're all. The problem with conspiracy theories is sometimes they're like kind of believable. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the agents of this massive multinational corporation who had a major interest in stopping this stopped it. And you're like, I mean, that's not exactly unhinged. It's just usually they get there without evidence, and that's the problem. But
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like there are like actual existing known cases where oil companies had like tracks for trolleys and public transit torn up, right? Like
Oh,
I've
yeah.
always
Yes.
heard that presented as fact, but haven't done a lot of independent research to it. But
Yeah,
I'm
we
sure
talked
we
a
will
little
at
bit
some
about
point.
that on the podcast about trains with Rafi. There was like that happened in Denver, I know, and a few other places where, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll do a more in depth talk about that later. But
But
that's
yeah,
definitely
that's what
something that
fuels.
happened.
That's what fuels these conspiracy theories sometimes. Is that there's a little. It's believable in some ways.
Yeah.
so yeah, spoiler alert: there's not a carburetor that gives you 200 miles to the gallon.
Yeah,
No.
and we'll get into why. So near as I can tell, this conspiracy theory started with one guy named Charles Nelson Pogue. Was a Canadian inventor and mechanic, and in the 1930s he got a few different U.S. patents for what he called a catalytic carburetor, and it was his claim was that it got complete vaporization of the fuel, so there's no fuel droplets in the stream, and made all kinds of claims about how good it was, but there was no like verifiable tests or demonstrations or like scientific proof that any of this was real. It kind of reminds me of like a lot of those. I think there was one that I talked about in the nuclear vehicles episode where some guy is like, "I invented a nuclear powered car. I'm gonna reveal it at this press conference," and then he's like, "Oh no, something happened. I can't. Please still keep giving me money for my investment, whatever." So it kind of
More to
strikes me.
inventing something than just having an idea.
Exactly, yeah. And then there's this other thing. In 1902, they called it the California carburetor, designed by this guy Roy Marks. And this, I'm not really sure what it was. It was designed also to make a complete vapor of the gasoline, but it used like cotton wicks, like on a oil lamp or something like that, to vaporize the
great.
gasoline, which sounds super dangerous to me. Just having a bunch of like gasoline soaked cotton in your engine bay. But like I think, I mean, I don't know if this was just another scam, or if it was just a bad idea that got hyped up too much, or if it was just one of those, like back in that time, it was kind of the Wild West of like inventing weird shit that was motorized. Like there's
we
all
didn't
these.
discuss this beforehand, but I do have something to say about that premise.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very difficult to find good information about this, but you guys have heard me talk about Smokey Yunick, the NASCAR guy from like the 70s.
Right. Yeah.
Supposedly he built something that was effectively this, but a well-engineered version of it that he called the hot air or the hot vapor intake, or shit, it's escaping me at the moment.
Yeah.
But
Something like that.
the gist of it was that you heated up the intake so that you got full vaporization of the fuel. And there are a few that are supposedly still left around that run, and because they were like running like a stoichiometric ratio of something like 17 or 18 to 1 as opposed to the normal 12 to 13 to 1, supposedly these were making upwards of like 60% more power than the same motor would naturally aspirated like regular intake. And their fuel economy increased dramatically, which when you increase power output, there is a lot of way to translate that into better fuel economy, because both are a result of a more efficient motor.
Yeah.
But supposedly there are still existing versions of this. One of Smoky Unix Pitman has a Fiero that has a motor like this in it. And, you know, it was like 454 big blocks making 800 horsepower and stuff like that. And what it was they had a system to use the exhaust to heat up the intake charge to, I think it was like 400 degrees.
Oh, wow.
And I could be wrong about that, but it was hot enough to vaporize the fuel between the carburetor and the chamber. They had a very rudimentary turbo on it because they were heating up the intake.
Yep.
And so it would expand. And so the turbo was not meant to provide boost. It was just meant to prevent the charge from being pushed back out through the carburetor. And as I understand it, on paper, the reason why this doesn't really float in terms of emissions is because that hot of a burn creates more NOx emissions.
Right.
Oh, that makes sense. Yep.
But I mean, we were like, some of the numbers I've seen put out there, and again, there's not like hard, well-documented info about this. Smoky Unix was as brilliant of an engineer as he was a con man.
Right.
Like, his greatest notoriety wasn't just from racing, it was from cheating every rule NASCAR would put in place. But that being said, he also like worked with GM as an engineer. I don't think he ever worked for GM, but they went to him to try get ideas for engineering motors because he was that good of a mechanic as well. So it's hard to separate fact and fiction with him. But yeah, supposedly these motors existed where a 454 would get like 700, 800 horsepower, something like that, and still make 40 or 50 miles to a gallon.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think I might have sent it to you, but I found a video by this English guy. I think his YouTube channel is called The Workshop. I think his name is Matt something. He's some kind of engineer that works mostly with motorcycles. And he was going over the whole hot vapor engine and talking about how, like, you know, there's, like you said, there's not a lot of documentation on it, so it's kind of hard to know what exactly was going on. But he was looking at sort of the thermodynamics of it, and he's like, you know, if you did have this temperature and pressure in the intake, then it would probably have like problems with detonation, you know, pre-ignition in the cylinder. And then also, like you said, it would have terrible emissions for or oxides of nitrogen. So it would be making like a lot more smog than your typical engine.
So,
But
I've heard what's felt like valid criticisms in regards to the thermodynamics of it, because I don't remember exactly because that's not really an area I have a lot of expertise. But basically, like, if it's running that efficiently, it's actually supposedly wouldn't be creating enough heat in the exhaust to heat up the incoming charge that much.
Okay.
Like these engines were running tiny radiators because they were having to keep things so hot.
Yeah.
I've heard valid criticisms of them. The pre-ignition or detonation thing, I don't know. Supposedly, the workaround for that is that when you had literally complete atomization of the fuel and it was a true vapor, not like a wet mist, there were fewer hot spots created. Like, there weren't globs of fuel that would ignite the same way that they do in a wet mixture. And
Okay.
supposedly that's what prevented that from happening. But I don't know if that holds up to science. I'm not an actual engineer.
Yeah.
It's a thing that There was a guy on his crew. Yeah, his name was Junior something. But yeah, he supposedly still has one of these motors. And I've heard
Okay.
plenty of people say it absolutely did work. And I've heard plenty of people say that it was just Smokey Eunuch being, putting on a smoke show.
Right.
And we might just never know. I don't know.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it's
it's a
interesting
more
if nothing else.
tangible thing than a lot of these 200 mile or 200 mile per gallon carburetors that were
Right.
always just vaporware. Like it was never real.
And so there is a thing called like stratified charge combustion. And I think Mazda is starting to do this with some of their next generation motors, where basically you have, the early Honda Civic, the CVCC engine, did something similar to this, and where you would have one circuit of your carburetor would give a very lean mixture into the intake, and so that would get drawn into the cylinder, and then you would have a separate intake valve in the head. This is how the early Civic would work. It would have a separate intake valve right next to the spark plug that would draw in a very rich mixture, and then that would be rich enough to be ignited by the spark plug, and then it would ignite the lean mixture.
Hmm.
And so Mazda is doing this with like more like direct injection technology. Um, and that could be something similar to like what Smokey Eunuch was doing. I'm not really sure on the details of that. And one of the technologies I'm going to talk about, or saying technology is being generous, one of the sort of snake oil scams that I'm going to talk about, it in some cases it does provide some benefits, and I think that's what it was doing, is something similar to that stratified charge combustion. But we'll get into that in a couple minutes here. Actually, why don't we just talk about that now? The main one that I've seen a lot of is called HHO, or Brown's gas, and this is basically a way of getting hydrogen and oxygen gas that you make via electrolysis, and then you pipe it into the intake of your engine, and it is supposed to it burns. It definitely does burn. It's supposed to burn cleaner and give you better emissions and fuel mileage, and also power. And there is some evidence that it does work with diesel engines, because with like a regular diesel engine today, you've got direct injection, and you've got, again, that very rich mixture at the very center of the combustion chamber, but not all of that fuel atomizes and burns up completely. That's why, like, sometimes you see diesel engines putting out soot, like black smoke.
Yeah.
And the premise of this is that, as near I can understand it, is you've got a very lean mixture of oxygen and hydrogen, swirling around the chamber, and then when you inject that rich mixture of diesel fuel, the rest of it burns more completely. Now, I don't know if that's true. There was some small study that was done that seemed to give some evidence of that, but I haven't seen a whole lot. Now, where it doesn't work is on gasoline engines. There's basically no evidence that it does any benefit, maybe a little bit for emissions, but mostly what it does is just draw energy from your alternator to run the electrolysis setup, and then you end up with worse mileage and worse performance. And a bunch of...
Can I stop you for just a second?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good. I do have to get out of here in a minute. Fortunately, everybody, I'm gonna probably have to bail early because I'm in a later time zone than everyone else. But I just found something interesting, and I'm gonna dig into this now that I know. Apparently, in the '80s, GM, Ford, and Mopar were all messing around with Smokey Eunuch's hot air intake thing, and supposedly there are actually documents and independent lab results that verify claims of like close to 50 miles to a gallon from things making 1.8 horsepower to cubic inch.
Huh. Okay.
So now I'm going to have to look into that more. But
Yeah,
apparently
definitely.
this is more than just snake oil. There was actual development by all of the big three and documents that verified the results.
Huh. And
Interesting.
I wonder why
Now-
we didn't see more of that. That would be the thing to look into, I guess.
The article goes on to explain why this never actually got put into production.
Oh, awesome.
But, I mean, it's Hot Rod magazine. I don't know the veracity of any of this. But if it's claiming there's actual documents, then maybe those still exist, and we can learn more.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
preview of a future episode, maybe.
Yeah,
Another one.
My gears are turning.
Well, Cars and Comrades, the podcast you listen to find out what the next podcast we're going to do. Or the next 10,
Yeah.
if we ever do them.
Cars and Comrades, where we spend 2 hours discussing 15 minutes worth of material. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I need to get out of here. And
No, it's all good.
when I found that, it seemed worth pointing out. So, all right. Sorry for having to leave, everybody. I suck. I work
you
at
don't.
5
No,
a.m.,
fine.
so my life sucks. All right. Everybody have a good night.
Good night.
All right, have a good one.
All right. So where was I? So HHO gas. It's it's basically you get like this little plastic tub with some metal plates in it, and then you run. They usually put water and potassium hydroxide in there, just to be like a electrolyte to provide to allow current to go through the water with less resistance. And then you just hook it up to your 12-volt, alternator, and a bunch of bubbles of oxygen and hydrogen come out, and then go into a vacuum line into the intake.
It seems like a Rube Goldberg kind of
definitely
way to do
yes. And some of these, some people are like selling kits for these for like $300. So like,
don't buy them. I assume.
Yeah, definitely not. Like, if you really want to try this out, if you're just, I don't know what.
If you have a YouTube channel and you want to myth bust this,
yeah,
you can.
Let alone, never mind that other people, like 5 other people, have myth busted this already, including, I think, the Mythbusters on TV.
Do it again.
Do it again.
Look, I don't think half of what we say on our podcast probably isn't new. So
yeah, but also like, don't do this at home, because you're filling up this reservoir with a bunch of oxygen and hydrogen gas, which can burn and explode very easily. And then you're also putting potassium hydroxide in it, which is caustic and can give you chemical burns. So like, I wouldn't do this. There's really no reason to. I have seen people use this for like welding gas, like in a replacement for oxyacetylene. Like if you can't get that, so if you put the proper like, what do you call it? Flash suppressors or like blowback preventers or whatever they're called, so that it doesn't explode on you. Like you can use it for welding gas.
Interesting.
Yeah. Maybe it's not as effective as like actual oxyacetylene, but it does work.
Wild.
Yeah. So
this is supposed to be just like basically a little bit added to the charge to essentially boost the efficiency and the power, I guess. Is that the claim?
Yeah, and there's not a lot of like science behind this. Like some people will claim that you can get this thing going and then like turn off the gasoline to your engine and just run it on water, which is totally not true at all. Like I don't know where anyone's getting that. Like maybe they're doing some kind of other chemistry in that container to get more gas out of it. I don't know. And then there's some people claiming that it'll like mildly improve your emissions, which seems a little bit more believable, but still hasn't been really tested.
I think with this, along with other sorts of like, as long as cars have existed, we've had these like little cons and these like legends of like 200-mile carburetors, or the cars that ran on water, but the guy was killed by the government or whatever. A lot of these conspiracy theories, like they make these claims and people do go with it. They're like, oh yeah, I've seen it, like, oh yeah, I've seen the video of this doing this, and it's like it's just a magician doing a magic trick. And one of the things, like, I'm more of a. I kind of got into like that skeptic kind of way of thinking, which kind of helped me be a better leftist, I think. But like there was a line I forget who said it, so I can't properly credit them, but it was a really simple line that I was just like, oh, and it was conspiracy theorists lie, just they lie. So there's like people who are genuinely convinced by these things, like they believe it themselves, and so they'll repeat it. But the original source is usually somewhere there's a lie. Like it's not just like, oh, they made this car and it worked for them. Like why would they lie? And it's like, well, they lied. Maybe everyone else after them believed it, but they lied. And like once you understand that, like, yeah, I know you wouldn't lie. Like I always used to be like, well, I wouldn't lie about that. Why would anyone else? And it's like, well, they do. They do.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
in a
just
lot of cases, this is people lying to try to sell some little gadget that you can put on
yeah.
your car and supposedly get better mileage or whatever.
Yeah, this is just like a more extreme, like this is typical capitalism. Like that always exists. And it's existed before capitalism too, to be clear. But like people try to make a living by creating this little story, and yeah, and they'll lie about it. And a lot of people will believe it. But that's kind of why I think we need to, in general, apply some skepticism to claims that are extraordinary. I think extraordinary claims should get extraordinary evidence before
Yeah,
I buy into it.
definitely.
And there's a million of these little stories. You could search, and we could do an episode like this every couple of months about these little legends and stuff. And there's a million of them out there, and there will probably be more. And I'm sure we have some to look forward to with electric cars coming soon.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure there'll be like some like holographic sticker with magnets in it that aligns the chakras in your battery to make it last longer, whatever.
Yeah, I can't wait. I really cannot wait for that.
Yeah. By the way, I was just scrolling through this Popular Mechanics article where so Popular Mechanics, not the greatest source of information, but they actually teamed up with Consumer Reports and NBC to do this reporting. So there is some like more mainstream, journalism going on. And one of the HHO generator gadgets that they found was $1,900. So
Oof.
yeah, people can spend plenty of money on these if they're going to get fleeced.
Yeah. Ugh.
But yeah, I mean, there's a few other of these gadgets. A lot of them are like you can put magnets on your fuel lines, and that's supposed to align the fuel molecules so that they're
Oh, come
I don't
on.
know what.
Oh, they're misaligned. They're not happy being in that gas tank in the
Yeah.
ground, and you gotta bring them some joy so that they explode right.
Right. And I guess I'll admit that I got sucked into some of these when I was younger. Like when I was in college, was like the first time that I had like a reliable internet hookup.
Yep.
And so I just started like going down all these rabbit holes about reading all these things. And I was like, I remember talking to one of my friends. One of the things I got stuck on was people saying that if you add a small amount of acetone to your fuel, it'll improve your mileage by like, I don't know, cleaning out harmful deposits or something. I'm not really sure.
Sure.
But like, what someone pointed out, I forget if it was my friend or someone online, was, acetone's a really good solvent and can probably, destroy your fuel lines if you have too much of it in there.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, like if you don't have a good grounding in science and you just read some of these claims, you can get kind of sucked into, thinking that these are real.
Oh, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole on just about anything. I mean, on any conspiracy of any, like there's a conspiracy for everything, and it's real easy to go down that rabbit hole, especially with just the nature of the internet in general. It kind of fosters that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And
so, yeah.
So one of these that I've actually seen advertised on TV, like late at night, is called the Tornado Vortex Generator. And this is basically a bunch of like sheet metal that's bent into the shape of like a fan, and then you put it inside the intake snorkel of your engine. So like
Oh
I
wait, those
forget.
little electric, the little fans.
Well, so this one is just a non-moving like stator. It's just
Oh,
the
okay. Yes, I know exactly. I know what you're talking about, though. It spins. It creates a spin on it or whatever.
yeah, it's supposed to like increase turbulence in the airflow to like
Yeah.
create better mixing of the fuel or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, like every single test that I've seen of these, it says it was worse for the fuel mileage and
Yep.
um,
It
power.
is. I've always wondered, like, how can you have something get like so thoroughly discredited and just continue to be sold, continue to be on ads?
Right.
People pay to put these ads everywhere. Oh, buy this thing, and it's like they've been proven to be detrimental every single test. Like, there's never been a test that showed otherwise,
Yeah.
and yet they continue to exist. Why doesn't the market punish them? You tell me. Why doesn't the market make this stop? I was
Yeah.
told the market will figure it out. I'm angry that the market doesn't seem to do its job ever.
Right. And some of the funnier tests of these, that guy Cletus McFarlane, who like drag races
Yep.
Corvettes, he tested out a couple of these ones, like the one that spins, like what you're talking about. It was
Yep.
basically just a plastic fan on a bearing in a
I
tube.
love it.
And all it does is like the air rushing through your engine just spins this little I don't know,
Turbine.
like toy thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like they lost like 5 horsepower on that thing or something. You know, they actually dyno tested it. They did. I think they tested like an electric turbocharger or like supercharger that actually worked, but it was like thousands of dollars. So
It's thousands of dollars, and I've heard that, like, they can break. It's
yeah,
a it is not the same as a real one.
yeah. Another funny one that Popular Mechanics tested was the engine ionizer.
This
Yeah,
sounds like a scam already. This sounds 100% like snake oil.
yeah. So it's a couple pieces of wire and some rubber blocks molded onto it, which the manufacturer refers to as capacitor blocks.
Uh-huh.
And after the test, they actually cut these apart and found no actual capacitors in them. They're just molded rubber. And so they clip onto the spark plug wires near the plugs. And then the idea is that they carry the corona discharge from one cylinder's plug to the electrodes of the other plugs, which is supposed to cause a partial breakdown in the larger hydrocarbon molecules in all the non-firing cylinders, resulting in increased combustion efficiency. So
Wow, so a bunch of claims, a bunch of big words, and it's like, no, it's bullshit though. It's 100% bullshit.
yeah, and pretty hilariously so. They tested it on the dyno and did and they found a 15 horsepower loss with this
Nice.
thing. And then they did a I believe an on the road economy test, and some of these rubber blocks started to melt and drip onto the exhaust manifold. So
Wow.
that's when they stopped doing the test, because there was flames coming out of the intake, or the engine bay, I should say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They also tested this thing called a vapor injector, which is just like a real janky fuel injector thing that just shoots vapor into your intake manifold.
nice little boost there, huh? Doesn't tell your computer about it, just does
Exactly. So like, yeah, there's no.
It's the idea of nitrous, but for fuel, and it's not tuned in.
Exactly. So yeah,
It's just gonna make your exhaust smell bad.
and it looks super dangerous too. Like, I would not put this on my car. Like, it's got like a little clear filter bowl where the fuel goes through. So it's just like a little glass or plastic bowl that is in your engine bay that could break, and yeah, that doesn't look very
Nice.
safe.
Nice.
So one of the things I came across that can actually be useful, but is often done poorly, is water injection.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
like we were
It's a
talking
real
about
thing
this
though.
a little bit, like for like forced induction engines, like if Brandon was going to put a supercharger on his car, it can be useful for like cooling down the intake charge.
Yep.
Like instead of having a bigger intercooler, you can have water injection where after the turbo or sometimes actually before, but usually after, um, when the pressurized air is hot, you add some water vapor, or sometimes it's water and alcohol vapor, and that evaporates and cools the charge, and you can have denser charge, so that makes more horsepower. It's cooler, so it's not having like detonation or preignition in the
Yeah,
combustion
as far as
chamber.
usually that it's used to you can run more boost without it just makes your boost safe because otherwise you're really risking detonation and that explosion in the combustion cylinder before it's supposed to. The water vapor or the methanol, whatever you're using, or the combination of the two, it cools it to lower the temperature to make that less likely. But it also like it's kind of like higher octane fuel is technically less combustible, which makes it more
Right,
controllable. By
right.
adding this extra element in there, you're essentially increasing the octane up essentially.
Correct. Yeah. And I've
So
seen
that's a
I
real thing.
yeah, no, I was on a team in Lemons that we used this on a
That's
supercharged
so
car, and it
awesome.
works pretty
That's
well.
so awesome.
Um yeah, and it was we were kind of cheating because we were using a really like a professionally made water injection system that just one of my teammates had lying around
Yeah.
from his when he was racing DSMs. But I mean, it worked. Like, I don't know how necessary it was, but it seemed to help. It's definitely not necessary unless if unless you're running a supercharged or turbocharged car, you don't really need this. Like
No,
maybe
no.
it'll help cool down like a hot engine, but like I don't know, a bigger engine or bigger radiator would do just as good a job. Uh,
Probably better, actually.
yeah. So like, and the system that Popular Mechanics tested, uh, it used like engine vacuum to draw the water into the intake. So it would
Hmm.
not really, it would give you less water when you're at wide open throttle because you would have less vacuum. So it would give you less water when you actually need that
Yeah,
water.
that's so they tested a bad system and they're like, "Oh, see, water injection doesn't work." And you're like, "No,
Yeah.
no, no, stop it. You didn't do it right."
Yeah.
No, that one's real. For the listeners, that one's fucking real. You can that's not a scam. You can buy it. That's a real thing. Just spend the money on it to get a good one.
Yeah. And this one that they had, they got 20 fewer horsepower and about 20% less fuel economy. So like if you have one, if you're going to do this, like make sure your engine is, needs it and that it's tuned for it. Because
Yeah.
like if you just put this on your car and hope that it does something without a tune on the engine, it's going to be bad for you.
Yeah. Yeah, good bet. But like anything else, all of these things it just helps to apply a healthy skepticism to claims in general, whether it's
Yeah,
about politics or economics or stupid car gadgets. If it sounds too good to be true, do your research because there's a good chance it is.
definitely. And I got one more to talk about here, which I thought was kind of funny. This is called the Fuelshark, and I'm reading off of a post on Jalopnik written by Jason Torchitsky, who is probably my favorite writer at Jalopnik. Jalopnik, it has its ups and downs, but
Which
he's
actually I
one
don't
of
know.
the
By the way, I don't know if like I didn't know this before we started doing the podcast and I'm like doing the social media stuff.
uh
Um, a lot of writers for Jalopnik are actually like pretty left. In fact, a lot of car media is surprisingly left. The car
yeah,
scene is like toxically reactionary,
right,
but all the writers are like, I mean, I've seen trans writers, I've seen like communist, and you're just like, what?
Yeah.
Where did this come from?
And
So
as I'm
anyway, I've
looking
learned
at
that.
this, yeah, no, that's good. Like, I think as I'm looking at this, Jason Torchinsky's his little avatar next to his name says GMG Union, which is the Gawker Media Group union. So he's repping the union of writers that write for Jalopnik and other related publications.
Yeah, Jalopnik's a pretty cool publication. So if you're not getting your news from them, like you can read them. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. And
We
I know
like
they've
them
had some
there.
problems. You know, they've been bought out by different companies a few different times. And I know some of their writers have left, and a lot of them are writing for The Drive now, which is
Yeah.
another pretty good publication.
I agree.
But so this one, the Fuelshark, it's a $40 little gadget that just plugs into your cigarette lighter.
I want to
And
buy
it's-
this already. For $40, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah. And it's supposed to increase your fuel mileage and lower emissions and increase horsepower. But all it is a little plastic thing with an LED that lights up blue that plugs into
So wait,
your...
what does it even claim to do? Because like there's nothing it could control from your cigarette lighter in theory. So like
Right.
what are they even claiming? Because I'm all here to shit on capitalism, be like capitalism sucks, it's stupid, but like sometimes I do wonder like how do they stay in business? Like how does this scam not like how is there no law against like you can't sell a light and call it a fuel safe? Like you can't do that. That has to be illegal.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to say what their claims are.
Wait,
Here it is. To maintain optimum electrical performance and improve MPG, your car will run better with a stable voltage environment. So all it is a voltage regulator, basically.
And I bet it can't even do that.
Yeah.
So, for any listener, like you can do things like a little thing like a grounding kit. I've never done one. I think that something like that can help because like there are real electrical issues that can be solved by better grounding. But a plug-in fucking voltage regulator is almost certainly not that thing.
Yeah, and like modern cars have pretty good electrical systems and good voltage regulators where like they don't really need this. Like Jason Torchinsky tested it on his Volkswagen Beetle, which in theory might need a voltage regulator, but because it's an older car. So he did a little test where he got a measured quantity of gasoline and just let the car idle on
Nice.
that gas until it ran out. And without the Fuelshark, it idled for 44 minutes and 37 seconds. And then with the Fuelshark, it idled for 42 minutes and 20 seconds.
Oh, see, it did worse.
Yeah, so it did worse.
Which, by the way, had nothing to do with the Fuelshark. It had everything to do with the car was like already warmed up or so. Like there was already some environmental change. It had. So when we say like, oh, it did worse, that's not to take it as like, oh, see, it had an effect. No, it didn't. It did nothing.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't meet its burden of proof, but like it also didn't affect shit. That's hilarious though.
And so he opened it up and looked inside, and he found it's got just a regular like glass fuse, like you have in any like anything that plugs into your cigarette lighter. A 35 volt 1 farad capacitor, and a 4700 ohm resistor, and an LED. That's all that's in there. So it's just a big capacitor, a little resistor to make sure the LED is at the right voltage or whatever, and then just a little blue LED that lights up. So yeah,
that's it.
So I mean, I guess it does sort of stabilize your 12 volt system to some degree, but yeah, not really. So I mean, he goes into more detail. He got out his little testing kit and learned a little bit more about it. But yeah,
you're not going to plug anything into your car that is going to save you gas.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, unless you, I don't know, like my, I've got like one of those cob access port things for my.
Yeah, that's a tuner though. There's a real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But there's.
I mean,
yeah.
that costs a few $100s, and you can put a fuel economy tune on it that like reduces the boost. But no, like other than that, it's not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna do much.
But they still keep selling them. It's amazing.
Yep.
And they still have money to advertise. That's the other weird thing is I'm like, how did you get the money to advertise this?
Right.
I always wonder.
Yeah, as seen on TV, world's #1 fuel saving product.
Everything's number one too, isn't it amazing?
Right.
Wow, rocketed to first place, huh? Jeez.
Yeah. But that's all I have on fuel saving scams. You know, I guess listeners write in if you've seen some of these that I missed. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of funny.
Scam, yeah, little goofy snake oil kinds of things are always fun.
Yeah.
Not if you buy into them, unfortunately, but they are generally kind of fun.
Well, should we do some news segments here?
Yeah, we got some news. I'm going to do this kind of rapid fire, probably a little bit faster than I might normally, but whatever. It's quick news. It's time for mostly us shitting on Elon Musk again because somehow he always finds a way to be in the news. So quick story is on the bronze Elon Musk statue in downtown Manhattan has been unveiled, mostly to a wave of mockery, apparently. So apparently there was a statue of Elon Musk in Lower Manhattan. I don't know why. The one single article I have bothered to read on this topic doesn't say why this statue exists. I don't know. He's a fucking billionaire. I guess and we just do billionaire worship in this awful hell world. But there's probably some stupid reason. Maybe he donated to some institute or whatever the fuck, or who cares? I'm
who cares?
Perfectly happy not reporting on this as actual news and actually it just being a joke. So it was unveiled, and most of the chatter on the internet was basically people pointing out where you can find it to use as a bathroom, and the article actually noted, how did they say it? Basically they noted that there was a few nice comments about it from people who like Elon Musk, which usually there's a ton of love for Elon Musk. But they said, well, on social media, there was a few good comments here and there, but it was almost exclusively people calling it a bathroom. And I thought that was very funny. And that is the treatment that he deserves. To be a fucking gender neutral bathroom from now until the end of time.
Yes.
So fuck him. I didn't do any more research into it. He got a stupid statue because he's a rich asshole, and most people think we should pee on it. And I am all for it.
Yeah. And once you're done doing your pilgrimage to the New York City and bowing down in front of the idol of Emperor Musk, you can get in your Tesla and drive away and maybe die and go to Tesla Valhalla.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of, let's see. Yeah. So yeah, right after this story, I want to point out our next story, which is also related to Tesla and Elon Musk. So of course he gets the statue for being a rich asshole, whatever. And everyone's been talking about the Model S Plaid, which is like the the new performance variant that is going to have supposedly very good performance. It'll do 0 to 60 in just slightly over 2 seconds, which they had felt the need to lie about for some fucking reason, but it's just over 2 seconds, which is fast as shit. And we did talk about it in our last episode, so I won't go too deep into it, but deliveries started just a couple weeks ago, so they really did just come out. Notably, they were supposed to come out in February, and they ended up coming out, obviously, in late June. So, once again, Elon Musk was fucking late, as usual, and will face no consequences. Everyone thinks he's a genius still. He's late every single time. It's crazy that people still take his word for anything, but they do. Anyway, so the first ones are really just out. There's probably not one that even has 1,000 miles on it yet. And we've already got pretty massive, disturbing problem to report. So, headline here is from CNBC. Tesla Model S Plaid caught fire while driver was at the wheel, says fire chief.
Yeah, this one was pretty terrifying.
Yeah, this one was actually... So, the original story that I started seeing circulating on social media first was that there was a Tesla that was seen driving around with no one in it on fire. Just driving around, I think it was in Pennsylvania, in a Pennsylvania neighborhood, until people started calling the police like, there's an empty Tesla on fire driving around my neighborhood. Can you please do something about this? So they later then determined that after they found the driver, they found out that it actually started while someone was driving it. So I guess what happened was, person was driving it, they had just gotten it, and they started seeing smoke coming from the back of the car. So like there was just smoke inside the vehicle, right? And they knew, okay, that you gotta get the fuck out, right? Of course, as we've speculated and joked about on this podcast in the past, because nothing is really mechanical and everything has to run off the stupid car systems, the door is locked with this guy inside. So like the car starts on fire and locks this guy inside the car. It just says the guy had to force his way out. It doesn't say how he did that, if he broke a window or what.
I saw another article, I don't remember where, saying that he had to put his entire body weight on the door to get it to open.
Yeah.
So
that's scary. That's really scary. We have made, like, we joke around about it a lot, like how they have bad quality control and how their fucking engineering is dog shit and how they cheap out on all the safety and how they run everything through a central fucking system that if it malfunctions is dangerous. And it's a big joke, but like it is serious. This is really dangerous stuff. And this doesn't bode well for like, oh, we just released this new model, and like weeks later, like, oh yeah, it's fucked up already. And so it starts on fire, locks the driver in the car. Driver gets out, and then the car drives away. Just like, okay, car starts driving, and it starts, it's blazing on fire. And you can find the pictures of this. Obviously we'll link the article. But this car is burnt to a crisp. I think they said it took 3 hours to put out. And it took the fire department 25,000 gallons of water. For reference, a typical car fire will be dealt with in about 300 gallons of water. So, yeah, this is fucked up. So, I'm not going to say like, oh, all electric cars are necessarily a problem and we have to be aware, but it's like we have to be aware that these electric cars, which could work, are being made for capitalists for profit, and they will cut corners for your safety. Now, I don't have a solution to that, because you're going to have to still get a car anyway. If you need a car, you need a car. So we all suffer at the hands of capitalism once again, it seems. But yeah, you would think that if they came out this late with the fucking car, they would have gotten it right, So, no. Instead, we have the cars catching fire, locking people in, and then driving away from the scene on their own. So
yeah, that's a little terrifying. I mean, I know at one point I had thought like, oh, these Teslas are kind of cool. Like I could see myself buying one used in a few years, or maybe if I got, a better job or something like that. But no, I don't think I'm gonna buy a Tesla.
I think
I don't want to burn to death. That's not high on my list of things to do.
Yeah, it's about the middle of my list of things to do. So, I think I'll find another electric vehicle company. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the gist of that story.
Yeah, and I found another thing about Teslas on Twitter. Someone was talking about something called phantom braking, which I guess is a common thing with Teslas, because for their like cruise control, or I don't know what they call it, super self-driving mode or whatever, they
Yeah,
use
full self-driving.
they use cameras to do the range finding of cars in front of you for cruise control. Whereas most car companies, if they're going to have super cruise control, like Mercedes uses radar for that, for the range finding.
Yeah.
There's other different systems. But the problem with using cameras is that, like, if you get a shadow in front of you of a cloud, or if you go over if you go under a bridge and it's dark, the Tesla will sometimes think that there's an object in front of you, and it'll slam on the brakes while you're going on the highway. And like, people are talking about this, some Tesla owners are like, yeah, that happens every once in a while, it's no big deal, you get used to it. And other people are saying on Twitter, like, what the fuck, like, I don't want my car slamming on the brakes without me doing it, like, what if just a fucking 18 wheeler just rear ends you because they're falling too close or whatever.
Yep.
Like,
and I feel like, so, I mean, obviously Brandon's not here now, but Brandon has been remarking on the show very consistently. And I think he hit the nail on the head that, Elon Musk picks a fucking technology. He basically picks the worst one way too early in development and then sticks with it throughout the
Yeah.
whole process. And like, he's stuck on, no, our cars are going to use regular cameras. And everyone else is like, no, that's really dumb and it doesn't work very well. And we gave up on that because it's stupid. But then he'll keep doing it, and he puts the cars out on the road, and they're not at all safe. And it's like, dude, like, autonomous vehicles have the potential to be way better than human drivers because human drivers are fucking terrible. Like, they could be so much safer. But Elon Musk is finding a way to make them not safer, and that's actually shocking.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And someone in this Reddit thread, or excuse me, Twitter thread, pointed out they have a Chevy Bolt, so a cheaper electric car than the Tesla, and they've driven it 75,000 kilometers and had no problems with phantom braking. So, like, it turns out General Motors, actually cares a little bit if their customers die in a fiery crash.
Which is shocking because, again, I'm driving that Camaro, and I can tell you GM didn't give a fuck about a lot of things. So, oof. That's really saying something.
Yeah, this is more of a indictment, whatever you call it, a criticism of Tesla than a praise for General Motors. But
yeah,
there you go.
So in more Tesla news, this is like not the biggest story ever, but I did find it interesting, and there could be some interesting things going on. But another article from CNBC, Tesla to recall, quote unquote, nearly 300,000 China-made Model 3 and Model Y vehicles. So Chinese regulators said on Saturday, and this was published Saturday, June 26th, so not that long ago. But anyway, they said that Tesla would recall nearly 300,000 China-made and imported Model 3 and Model Y cars for an online software update related to assisted driving. I read the whole article. They do not go on to clarify what that means. So, like, what they're talking about by an update related to assisted driving. So I don't know what that, if there was a real problem that was found. Are they being quiet about it? I don't know. I mean, I don't think the Chinese government would have any reason to do any favors for Tesla because they have competitive companies in their country, and this would give them an edge over Tesla. So, like, I don't know, like, if there's no like real benefit to hiding it. They're hiding it, I guess, in some way. So there's probably some benefit somewhere, but it's probably not that important. It's probably not even a big deal, to be honest. So owners actually don't even have to return the cars to like a dealer or anything. They just like, it's an online software update. So their cars regularly update, I guess. This is just the Chinese forcing a particular update in the cars, I guess. So something obviously didn't meet some standard in China, or broke some rule, or was like not working properly, and so they're forcing this quote unquote recall. What was interesting about it to me was just that with the new style of like cars that are like this, like you can have a recall that is literally just a software update. And I think that that's actually kind of interesting. And I guess I don't know how I feel about it yet. It's convenient that like if there's a problem, which there's always problems on cars, no matter how well you engineer it, shit goes wrong. So problems that can be fixed with a simple software update, I mean, that's kind of a promising, like, that's cool. I mean, that's better than like having to go into the shop and have this and that done. So there's some benefits to it. However, I also see some like future problems, of course, because like we all see it with our phones. You got what? Oh, yeah, I remember that last update, and phone just wasn't the same after that. Is that going to happen to your car? So just imagine, like, you get you're going to have people wondering, like, they're going to start, and half of this could be like a placebo effect at some point, but like people are going to get an update on their car and be like, that last update, I feel like I'm a little bit slower, or my power delivery doesn't feel as smooth, and like people will work themselves up into thinking there's a problem because of the last update.
Yeah, it's like people that go to the mechanics and they're like, ever since you changed the brakes, I haven't been getting as good mileage. It's like, well, those two things are not related. Like,
Yeah,
you're just looking for connections where there aren't any. But yeah,
and there could be connections. So like in theory, this could be the next part of engineered obsolescence. I mean,
yeah,
this could be that, hey, let's do an update to help the customer's battery die a little bit sooner so that it can serve, so it doesn't damage it.
yep.
And you're like, fuck you, you just want me to buy another car. And
Yeah.
I do not put it past Elon Musk to do that kind of shit. So
Yeah, I've heard rumors of things like that with the lower trim models of the Teslas, but I don't know. I don't have a source for that. I've also heard stories, and I don't have a source for this either, of
okay,
someone.
a lot of no source stuff for a news episode here, Brian.
If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. But whatever, we're just
giving you a hard
spreading rumors here. We're just slandering Tesla. There was someone who was like
parody. That's not to be taken seriously. No legal action can be taken from this.
Yeah, I heard a story, might be true, might be not, of someone who was like late to work because their Tesla was doing updates and they couldn't start it. It was just sitting there.
Oh my god, that's like going out to your car and like your windshield is iced and you're like, well, fuck, I'm late for work now.
Yeah.
Oh, but that could happen anytime now.
Yep.
Oh no. Oh, that would definitely make me late because I'm never early.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Same.
Oof, yeah, I never even thought of that. God, can you imagine like a computer update where you can't put it off and you're just like, fuck, I have to go. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, you've given me something to be so fearful of now.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Ugh, I didn't even think of that.
I mean, if you didn't need enough to be fearful of like the ocean being on fire and stuff like that.
I wasn't that fearful of that. Actually, in fact, I had kind of forgotten about it because like I haven't really had service this weekend. And like I saw a couple images of it and I was like, that looks fucked up. And then I moved on.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to like doom scroll because I had bad service.
Maybe I've just been doom scrolling. I for a while there, I was reading all the different articles about like all the residential schools in Canada, like killing all those Indigenous children.
Yeah.
That'll depress you pretty quick, I tell you.
Yeah. That's fucking terrible. And
But,
yeah, the ocean on fire, that looks bad. I was like, ooh, yeah, that looks real bad. I don't know the current state of it, but oof.
Yeah.
Shitty.
But sorry if I derailed what you were talking about.
Oh, no, that's okay. This is the derailing podcast. That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's really the gist of that story. There's a big recall. It may or may not cost Tesla. It may or may not be Tesla's fault. I don't know, but it's interesting that they can do a recall in which it's just a software update. That's could be, it's there's some upside to that, but there's a lot of potential downside too. But also, it got us on the topic of China, which to our listeners, China is a very complicated place, and I'm not about to stake out too much on that. But just this past week was the 100-year anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. So,
Yeah.
cheers to them.
And critical support, if nothing else.
Yeah,
for
hope
lasting this long.
I hope they bring in global communism in some form. I don't, that's a complicated thing. Like, I'm rooting for success. I have some criticisms of perhaps how it's been achieved, but it's complicated, and I'm an American, and I don't fucking know the truth about a lot of things because I can't get that, and I don't speak the language to get better information. So,
yeah, and someone pointed out that the Chinese Communist Party started with like 25 dudes, or 25 people, I should say. I don't know what their genders were.
I'm pretty sure it was all probably men.
But
yeah,
so like, I mean, starting with that like 100 years ago, and ending up where they are today, it's, if nothing else, it's a, I don't know, motivating story, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there is, while there's plenty of criticism, they are attempting in some way to build some kind of socialism or gain enough control to, kind of bring other capitalist imperialist nations to heel. Now, that's
right.
That's a strategy that, to me, I don't always appreciate personally. I sometimes think in terms of, I think our way of doing things is better. I literally think that socialism should beat capitalism every time. I think socialism is better than capitalism, and I wish we would fucking act like it. I do sometimes wish that we would stop pretending that, like, our metrics shouldn't be, oh, we'll see, like, a worker co-op can be just as good as a regular company, or, oh, well, this socialist country has this GDP, fuck your GDP. They're feeding their people. Like, if you stop sanctioning them, maybe they won't fucking die. I sometimes don't like the fact that we play on their framing of the debate. But to the degree that we have to, there is some degree of that. The economy is global, so China has to participate in some way, shape, or form, and that does mean markets to some extent, and it does mean probably some amount of, some aspects of capitalism. So again, I'm critical,
and
sort of how they build it.
They're yeah. I was going to say, just like, even self-described, they call their system like socialism with Chinese characteristics. So it's their own thing that they're doing. It's not purely socialist or communist or anything. So like,
and to be fair, every socialist experiment should not look identical. Okay, because we don't have global communism yet. We haven't gotten it all right, or the material conditions haven't been right. So like, yeah, there's more than one way to get there, and I'm hoping for success from them. I have my gripes, but good for them. I mean, they're comrades for the most part in my book.
Yeah, and they've done plenty of great stuff with like public transit infrastructure.
They've done great with that,
and also eliminating poverty in their country. So, like, maybe some of the more imperial looking things that they've done, maybe some of the human rights things they've done haven't been the greatest, but like, in many ways, they're critical support, I think, is the 2-word answer to that.
Yeah, I just know we do sometimes get questions from like people on social media, like, hey, what's your idea on this? And I generally answer those questions with, I think it's complicated. And I get China a lot, and I go, look, I don't necessarily know everything about it. I'm not an expert, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But I think it's critical support is generally our position.
Yeah.
And, hey, congrats on 100 years for their Communist Party.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move on, I did want to say, like, about Elon Musk. There's been a couple other episodes that have covered him pretty well. The couple that come to mind, I think Zach told me about Eat the Rich podcast,
And they
If Zach didn't tell you, I did. I know for
okay,
sure.
maybe it was
I
you
do
then.
love Eat the Rich is a great podcast.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
But yeah, they did I think it was like a two-parter on Elon Musk, like maybe a year ago.
Yeah, it was
Sort of
something
like
like that.
a biography on him and sort of like some of the business ventures he's been in. And then what's it called?
Behind the
True Anon.
Bastards. Oh,
Oh yeah, Behind the Bastards did one about him that was very similar, and then also recently, True Anon did a three-parter on Elon Musk, which I think the second and third episodes in that are behind the paywall. That's their Patreon stuff, but there's ways of pirating that, or if you really want to, or you can give them your money if you're feeling nice. They're not always the most, I guess, they're a little bit credible of conspiracy theories that I don't put much credence in. But like this reporting, I think was pretty well done.
well, you
So
have to be. I think this even goes back to like the China thing. You kind of have to be skeptical of all your sources of information.
right,
And that's kind of like I see this from, I'll see anarchists that take bait that they shouldn't, and I see Marxists take bait that they shouldn't. And you're like,
right,
yeah, I know this supports the thing that you believe, but like, look at where it's coming. Like, it's not great. And I see it on the left. Of course, I see it on the right. That's that. They can't tell they can't tell a source from their own asshole. Like, they really cannot tell the difference. Whereas on the left, we're better about it, but we are susceptible to like confirmation bias.
yeah, we're all humans,
Yeah.
And about China, I'll say like if you see a source, if you see an article citing Adrian Zenz or the U.S. State Department, I would be
Yeah.
skeptical of those sources.
Yep.
They've been caught lying on a couple things before, so yeah, maybe take it with a grain of salt, if nothing else.
Yep.
So, trying to think, what else did we have? Did you have any more news stories?
Yeah, I got just a couple more. Let's see here. My next thing was the sort of a bit of a rumor kind of. So this isn't like super official, but Mazda did come out and in answer to a question did suggest that the next generation of the MX-5 Miata is going to be electrified in some way, shape, or form. So they did not confirm whether it was going to be like a full electric option or a hybrid. If I were to take a guess, I would probably put my money on hybrid first. And there could be a full electric in the next generation, but it's sort of rumor-esque, and it was a little bit of an afterthought. It wasn't like Mazda was like doing a press release saying this. They were kind of asked a question, caught off guard, and they were like, yeah, it's going to be electrified in some way. You'll find out later. So it seems believable that they will hold to that. It seems, highly probable that they were already looking into options for this, even as early as this most recent generation. Like all car companies, they have thousands of engineers. At least a handful of them are working on an option to make some kind of electric power for a Miata. It's a safe assumption. I
mean, I think basically every automaker is looking into electrifying their existing models or coming out with new ones at this point. Because, I mean, so many countries are saying we're going to phase out, we're going to ban electric or non-electric vehicles, any sort of combustion engines by this date or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and
it makes
hybrids
sense
are becoming, and hybrids are coming on strong. So
yeah.
I do think it's probably a pretty good bet that it'll be a hybrid. And hopefully, with any luck, it'll come with a little bit more pep than it has in the past. Chances are they're going to want to make a splash with it, and they're going to want to sell more hybrid and electric technology, and they're kind of going to want to I think silence we can already hear the headline. I can already see the headlines of them not meeting expectations. So my money would be they're probably going to try and exceed expectations a little bit, and it may in fact be a faster Miata, which I would welcome.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, with an electric Miata, the challenge would be to keep it light, because that's been their goal at least with the current generation of Miata, they've made it lighter than the last one. So like if they're gonna keep this thing at all light, it's going to be tough to put all those batteries in. But I mean, a hybrid definitely makes sense for for such a small car. They don't get that great mileage, so it would.
Oh, they get pretty bad mileage, actually.
Yeah.
For not that much power and not that much weight, you kind of have to wonder, where the fuck's it all going, man? Come on. Yeah. The Miata's great. They handle well. They dominate in autocross, but god damn it, every generation does leave us wanting more, doesn't it?
Right.
But yep, that's the way that be. So that pretty much does it for me on the news. Just a couple of quick stories and mostly making fun of Elon Musk, which I'm always happy to do.
Yeah. Well, I did have one more thing that I wanted to mention. There's something called the Drivers Cooperative that started in New York City recently. And it's a rideshare app, sort of like Lyft or Uber, but it's a co-op owned by the drivers. And so they're trying to make a better experience for the customers and for the drivers. And a better profit, a better, financially for both of them. They're trying to undercut the price of Uber and Lyft, at least, sometimes, because they always do that surge pricing thing that can, make one cheaper than the other at certain times. Yeah. But and then they're trying to get more of that profit back into the pockets of the drivers.
Yeah.
And there was a couple.
Yeah, they're in.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say they're in New York City now, and I think expanding a little bit into New York State. So if you are a listener in that area, that's, if you can get your rides through them.
Yeah,
I know I actually heard about them because of a segment on Means Morning News.
Okay,
which is the Means TV news program, which features it's now just Sam Sachs from District Sentinel. So if any of our listeners who may have come from Street Fight crowd or whatever and District Sentinel, they did Means Morning News, and Means Morning News is the fucking best. So if you don't already, I'll go ahead and I'll plug their shit. If you don't already have Means TV, they're fucking legit. Their normal subscription's like $10 a month, and I think it's worth it just for Means Morning News because it is really that good. It is fantastic reporting, and it's funny as shit. But it's like good, legit journalism. Like the guys from District Sentinel, the Sams, they are very good journalists, for real.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check that out. I mean, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I listen to their podcast, and it's also good. Their District Sentinel podcast.
Yeah, and so for Means TV, I know that they're cool. Like, they're socialists. If you message them and you say, "Hey, I can only pay $2 a month," or "I can't afford it right now, I'm out of work," or whatever, they'll hook you up for free, no questions asked. They won't pester you about it.
Yeah.
So they will give out their service because that's what they're about. So that's a thing that they do promote openly. That's not something they hide. Like, you can message them at Means TV and they will give you access because they're fucking cool as shit. So I will plug them happily.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard about this story on Pod Damn America podcast.
Okay, gotcha.
So they interviewed a couple of the founders of the co-op, and who had both worked as either, I think, taxi drivers or rideshare drivers in the past, and they had all these problems with the service and how shitty it was for workers, and they're like, well, let's start our own. So that's a pretty good interview. I was saying, like, hey, maybe we should ask those people to be on the on our podcast, but like, I think their interview was just fine, and they asked any of the questions that I would have asked. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so check that one out.
Yeah. We're just recommending people listen to other podcasts other than ours.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we're a very small podcast. We just started out, and we're kind of a bunch of goofballs. So,
yeah. And if you've listened to 2 hours of the podcast already, then whatever, you're one of the hardcore, I guess.
Yes. Accurate.
Yeah. So I think that's all we got. I was going to say this is the summertime, so people are busy, so we might not have everyone on the podcast every single episode, but we're going to try to still put out regular content. It might be a little different than what we've done in the past, but I think it'll be good.
Yeah, we're figuring it out, folks. Guess what?
Yeah.
We're not as put together as we might appear on the podcast, which is probably not great already.
Yeah.
It's worse. It's worse behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But
any more on that.
To kind of finish this off, I did want to just renew the call out for any listeners who are female identifying or trans or people of color, anybody in basically not cis het white guy status,
right?
If you've had experiences in the car scene or in working in the automotive industry, whether it's journalism or you're a mechanic, if you've had experiences from the obvious systems of oppression that surround us all, let us know. We would like to have a few episodes in the future on these kinds of things. So we are reaching out to, you, the listener, because actually you're the ones we give a shit about. We're not here to preach to other cis het white guys necessarily. They're welcome too. Don't get us wrong, but we do want to hear other voices, and we know this scene is really toxic to a lot of people who are, not like us. And so we want to hear about that. We want to highlight those stories, and we want to do whatever little part we can to make it better. So please do reach out. Or just
definitely.
reach out to, reach out for reaching out's sake, because we enjoy it. We like interacting with you guys.
Yeah.
So find us on social media, And
if you've gotten this far and you still want to hurl abuse at us or leave shitty Reddit comments, go ahead and we'll make fun of you.
Yeah, I do like that. Giving some hate to, people on the internet.
Yeah.
We're petty. We are petty humans over here, so don't put us up on a pedestal like we're not.
Exactly.
We don't ignore things. We talk back.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about it. And I don't know if we have anything else, but I think I'm just going to stop the recording if that's it.
That's pretty much it. Review and rate and review, and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit, and possibly other ones that I don't remember.
Hexbear, there's a few people on there that respond to us. Yeah,
yep,
that's been positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So follow us anywhere you get social media stuff. Cars and Comrades. Look us up.
Cool. I guess Facebook too, but we haven't really been all that active on Facebook.
I try, but I don't have any new people there, so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your boomer parents to subscribe to our Facebook page.
We welcome boomer listeners too.
Yeah.
If you you're welcome here if you're cool.
Yeah, silent generation, whatever. I don't make judgments. Generation X, you're fine too. But all right.
Well, have a good one, everybody. Thanks for listening this long. You did it. You made it through.
Congratulations. You win nothing.
Yeah. Catch us next time.
We don't think you fight fire with fire fists. We think you fight fire with water fists. We gonna fight racism, not with racism, but we gonna fight with solidarity. We said we're not gonna fight capitalism with black capitalism, but we going to fight it with socialism.
Amazingly, or not so amazingly, Cuba's crime rate is one of the lowest in the entire hemispheres. Oddly enough, it seems that when people have their basic human needs met, they're less likely to commit crimes.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
The free market mythology, it argues that the most ruthless, selfish, opportunistic, greedy, calculating plunderers applying the most heartless measures in cold-blooded pursuit of corporate interest and wealth accumulation will produce the best results for all of us. Through something called the invisible hand.
What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.